Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's go to our packet, please. And the first part of the packet is the bank reconciliation. As of October 31st, 2014. I'm happy to report that again the city is reconciled to the penny, so everything's accounted for, books are balanced. We have the police evidence fund as of August, and the municipal court balances, although not reconciled, we have the account balances listed in there as well. The next page of that packet lists at the very top, as always, the deficit funds of the city. We still have 13 remaining deficit funds, with totaling just under $4.9 million. I'd like to give some good news. As of during October, beginning into November, the advance that the city took on its traffic camera money is paid in full. So the city received just under $65,000 from the traffic company this last month. So that was a welcome check. After speaking with the camera company, the city should be receiving one more check in December. As a result of that, we will be amending the certificate with the county and the council, bumping it up probably about $50,000 or so. We'll get you the accurate amounts at the next meeting. And that will in turn enable us to get a little bit more appropriations. And we'll work with council on this, meet with council to go through the appropriations. In the revenues, page 6 of your packet, this does list the revenues that are still short in coming to the city. We should be at 83%. These are the funds where we've not reached that. A good portion of these are grant monies that the city is waiting to get. Page 7 lists the expenditures to date versus the appropriations. And again, we should be at 83%. These are the departments within the general fund, and then the other funds where we are over the 83% as of the end of October. Again, we're monitoring these. Every expenditure the city does, we do work with the finance director and keep track of and make sure we stay within our appropriations. Another couple good things. One, even though they're one-time monies, they were monies that the city received. The city received a $315,000 revenue from the cell tower lease that we've been anticipating, so that did come in full. The state also gave rebates for workers' comp. The city received its rebate. That was about $175,000. So that was about $490,000 in one-time revenues that the city got this year, which was very welcome. Thus far, the city's been able to make all of its payroll and all of its pension payments. We do, however, still have a list, excuse me, of outstanding bills, and that is your aging report. That's a separate paperclip as of November 19th. We tried to do it as close to the meeting to get you the most current info. I'd like you to look at the top of the page. Total bills found in the search was approximately $1.7 million. There are some lawsuits where some judgments have been issued against the city, so that we've broken out for you so you can see the city is still attempting to work on those to reduce the amount of outlay. The Rumpke payment that was due every month, we were on a payment plan, that's paid off in November, so you see that drop off on the next financials, but we made our last payment on that. We still have our monthly fee, but the old debt is paid off. And because of these one-time revenues, the city was able to make some healthcare payments and use that revenue from that one-time shot to make its healthcare claims. So that was definitely a very good thing, and that was done last week.
What was I know it's like we made a payment on the what is the remainder of that payment?
Actually, it's all been paid. All the claims, all the third-party administrative fees, we are current as of last week, so we caught up. We're still going to be getting more claims as they come from the third-party administrator, but as of right now, the finance director was able to pay claims. So it's wonderful. Again, just to reiterate, we're watching every expenditure. The city, keep the new spending curtailed. There's really no extra cash to go around. We're, going to try to speak through the appropriations we have, and that's going to be tough. So I just want to reiterate that fact. And we're going to be updating, doing the amended certificate and working with council on the appropriations. That's what's coming up. And we're going to be looking at the budget for 15.
You're updating the revenue certificate for the 15 appropriations.
We are. We're doing both. We're doing an updated one for 14 because of that. And then we're looking at 15. And just as caution, I said we got about $490,000. That was one-time revenue. That's not going to reoccur in 15. So we know already those revenues for 15 are going to be much lower than 14.
As a strategy for 15, would it make sense to not update it with the increased revenue to force the budget to be shrinking?
Yes, that's our game plan. We're going to go with the revenues that are coming in. Yes, yes. Any other questions?
I have a few. So that I understand, you did speak in terms of unanticipated, well, I wouldn't exactly call it cell tower unanticipated because it wasn't planned. We did receive that, we did receive the PWC rebate. In terms of the bank reconciliation, last month when we met was as of September, and we had approximately $30-some thousand. Are we seeing in this reconciliation the results of the cell tower rebate? I had thought we received
That's
the
coming
rebate.
in November, right? The cell tower. Did it come in October?
If you look on page 11, on the very bottom of page 11, in other revenue, you'll see the workers' comp refund on its own line of 175, as well as the sale of cell tower lease of just under 308.
And if I had last month, so they're not here.
Correct.
Okay, so these were just realized in October. And again, one time only. In previous meetings, we've had something which, maybe it's here and I haven't seen it, but it was a kind of cash flow statement where the priority payment was made and so forth. So, should I take this that all priority payments were made? You mentioned the rookie. I guess what I'm looking at or trying to reach is that in the past, just based on the revenues that have been received and the outflow that must occur, should be occurring, there's always been a deficit and there's been a decision as to what we pay this month.
And the same thing, that's not changed. There's still electric bills that haven't been paid, gas bills that haven't been paid. Cell phones have been shut off at the city. Where city's getting letters saying, hey, if you don't pay us, we're gonna shut this off. And the city's been trying to stay current with those urgent bills. There's still obviously 1.7 in payables, so, but it was deemed that those healthcare claims were pretty important, so that took priority over some of these other bills.
Any other questions?
When we're talking about the revenue coming in, are we going to address, the, collection agency which has stopped, paying, and would you elaborate on that?
Sure, sure.
We had to actually, track down our collection agency and after, and also talk about ATS. The traffic lights that are working and that are not working, and how the ATS is not giving us money like they should. As you said, we have paid off the upfront money that we had to put in sort of a tizzy there. So these are things that I would like for you also to discuss because we're not getting the revenue that we should from the collection agency. And we have to go out and track them down, and that was one of my jobs that I had to help do and be tracking the auditor to get it done. We finally tracked PFF down.
It's PFS because there's so many acronyms out there. So it's PFS, okay.
And he finally come around and explained to the auditor what they were doing and what they had done. And the ATS is saying that they stopped giving them the money. If I'm incorrect, please correct me.
Nope, you're right.
So I would like for this to be expounded on. And since we have our major player here, I would like for him to hear what is going on.
To revisit, we talked about this a little bit the last meeting. The city has a contract with ATS, took an advance on the revenues in 2013. That advance has been paid off. The city main company that they work with is ATS. There are 12, 13 cameras in the city. Of those 12 cameras, half of them work, but the city is still paying a fee on the ones that don't work. We met with the provider. We asked, we just shut the cameras off. Please just shut the ones off instead of charging us the monthly fee. Can't do it. Still within the contract that the city currently has. If the city were to renegotiate with them and extend the contract, they would then turn the cameras back on.
Why are the cameras not working if there's a contract with the company?
It could be, there could be several things. I don't know if it's the light itself, the mechanism of the lights itself that aren't working. The light itself doesn't work. It's something within the city's.
So it's the city's infrastructure that is preventing the cameras from working.
That's our
why
understanding.
the
That's our
camera
understanding.
company says it's not us.
Yep. But they're still charging a monthly fee for those cameras. Try to get out of it, just shut those off, wouldn't do it. That being said, we're dealing with this till probably mid-June of next year. The city, ATS collects the fine money up through 60 days. They try for 60 days to collect the traffic camera money. After that point, it was going to PFS as a collection agency. When the city initially signed on with PFS, the city gave PFS several delinquencies, over $20 million in delinquencies, for traffic camera monies for PFS to try to collect. PFS in turn gave the city upfront money of over $800,000, contracts saying, hey, we're giving you these receivables, here's some cash up front. Since that time, this PFS has been working to collect that revenue. Unfortunately, the contract that the city signed wasn't just for PFS to collect that $800,000. It was for PFS to collect somewhere around 2.3, 2.4 million. The city has not, or PFS has not collected that level yet, and probably never will based on the spreadsheets we're getting from them. So there's no revenue coming from PFS. They're still collecting on those revenues, as they trickle in. It's exceeded the $800,000 that they gave to the city, but unfortunately, not to the level that the city agreed upon. Then, the more you talk to this PFS, it's like, wait a minute, the city keeps sending you, after 60 days, ATS sends PFS, the delinquents, a collection agency, if you will. The percentage is very high that they're taking for themselves. So ATS said, we're not sending anymore. There's no collection agency at this point after 60 days. So we're talking with the city to try to get another collection agency, hopefully local, because like Ms. Thomas said, we couldn't reach them, they didn't respond to us. It took her helping to step in, working with the law director to actually get these people to respond to us. Since then they have, and we've been getting our spreadsheets. But again, no money. So the city needs to look at another avenue for another collection agency. Like we said, maybe somebody local that doesn't charge as high a fee to work them.
So if I'm understanding, at $20 million worth of collectibles, at that point, it's got to be for a number of years.
Yes,
The
it is.
older they are, the less likely you are going to be able to collect on those. Right, we're really looking at a write-off. The collectibles, PFS, in essence, purchased at a discount because they gave the city up front. I think it sounds like that's not very feasible to get those, so that it does sound like anything that would be more feasible as far as revenue generation is to go after the more recent, which is what ATS is not sending to PFS, so that makes sense. In spite of that, I would just caution that we come a couple months from now, who knows, maybe not, but it appears that we may not be having a discussion at all about any revenues from traffic cameras, given what's going on in Columbus. So, from the viewpoint of generation of revenues, I think it's important to be able to get as actually, I kind of think it is.
December payroll? So we have 5 payrolls in 2 months. It's a concern.
Mr. Yost, as financial supervisor for this commission, any other viewers?
I will say this is the first time other than a closure that I have ever come to a financial commission meeting. And the reason I'm here is because of the gravity of the situation here. The commission's approved a recovery plan. The problem is that that acceptable plan was based on circumstances that existed 6-8 months ago, and the bottom has fallen out of the bucket. We've had additional issues arise, and the plan is no longer viable. Nita kind of gave you a snapshot of the current financial situation, and it's good that some of those one-time monies came in, but as the chair noted, largely those were planned for. And the city remains in structural deficit. I've written a letter to you. I sent it out Friday, and kind of explains in writing some of the things that have changed. You know it probably as well as anybody does. I won't reiterate that, but the bottom line is that East Cleveland is insolvent. And that leads us to the question of borrowing. The financial plan considers borrowing for 2 purposes, both of which are permissible under the statute. The first being that to eliminate our outstanding accounts payable, and that's a good idea. And the second is to eliminate the fund deficits, which is also a good idea. However, it's not a good idea if the conditions that led to those deficits have not been cured, because what that means is we'll pay off one set of deficits with debt, and then we turn around and we get a whole new batch of deficits. That's what the structural deficit means. And until the city can get to the point where it doesn't have that structural deficit, I can't really suggest to you that it's a good idea to go forward with any borrowing. And would go on record today as saying that as the situation is today, I think it's unwise to go forward with the authorization of local government fund notes. Now, that being said, we have to look forward to what happens next. And you only have, I should say, not you, the commission, but the city itself only has so many limited options available. I'm disappointed that Mayor Norton wasn't able to be with us today because on his shoulders and Madam President, on your shoulders, really lies the horrid responsibility of making the decisions among these awful options. We have to either find a way for new revenue, and quite frankly, as I look at your tax base and I look at your options, I have no idea where that would come from, but technically, if you could find more revenue, that would perhaps give you a route. Further cuts, and I have to say that, here I will give kudos to council and kudos to the mayor. Wow, you guys have made some very tough choices. I know you made cuts that you never wanted to and felt compelled to do, and yet those cuts are insufficient to get the balance back in the budget. Chief, I know that the fire department has suffered reorganization of your existing obligations. And you can do that either through the formal legal process or informally. But that requires some leadership. Technically, you can get all of your creditors, all the unions, all the places that you owe money to agree to not only reduce their what you owe them, to take a haircut in parlance, but also to look at those costs going forward into the future and agree to somehow lower the cost basis. Frankly, those are very difficult decisions. A couple of other cities around the country that have tried to do that voluntarily through a receiver have ended up in court anyway. But the third option is to try to develop a plan where you can reduce your payables and the basis of your costs going forward. Frankly, I've looked at the numbers, and knowing what the environment is for the competition for labor, I don't know that you have much room to be able to drive down your costs a whole lot that way. But technically, like revenue enhancement, it's a possibility. And then the final option is to look for a partner for merger. Greater economies of scale can create a path forward together where you're unable to create a path forward alone. Let me hasten to say that I don't have an opinion about what you ought to do. I don't have a plan for what you ought to do. It's inappropriate for me to do that. The way Ohio law is written, and appropriately so, it is the role of the community to chart its own course. And my staff, Eunice and Nita, have worked with you to try to help provide information and resources and ideas. And we will continue to do that. At the same time, the decisions really need to remain in your hands. You're the representatives of the people who are elected to make those decisions, not me or my staff. I will be glad to take questions and answer or hear comments to the chair's discretion as best as I can. But here's the bottom line from today's meeting, I think. East Cleveland's insolvent. The recovery plan is not going to get you to recovery, and we continue to have structural deficits. Madam Chair, I would ask that the Commission consider instructing the city to, as part of its budget process for 2015, which is ongoing right now, to develop a new recovery plan, and that the recovery plan and the budget match, and that whatever actions are necessary to eliminate the structural deficit need to happen. Here's the challenge. We pay payroll, okay? Your paychecks didn't bounce. But the problem is we're out of time. There's still a little bit of money in the bank, but not enough, not nearly enough. And so the day that it all comes down and there's no time left is the day that the city council president, the mayor gets a call, I get a call, there's no money for payroll. And you know what? I wouldn't blame the hard-working people who work for the city if, with their paycheck bounce, if they didn't show up. Would any of us say that that was wrong, that they were wrong not to come back to work? None of us work for free, right? So when that day comes, what are we going to do? What options do we have at that point? There will be fewer options than the four awful options that I've outlined today. So I would be glad to engage in conversation. I want you to succeed. You are all part of the constituency of Ohio. I worry about your city. I worry about the people that work here. worry about the conditions in this city, and I want to see you find a path forward. We must find a path forward. The budget and political problems that might exist don't mean that 18,000 people aren't still going to be living in this 4 square miles, right? And so the people are what we've got to be focused on, and we've just got to get past our pride, our hopes, our political futures, and figure out what we need to do.
On your side, appreciate your comments. Your comments that has long been recognized. The issue here is, like you said, where do we go from here? This is the first time that we've done, I think, if I'm correct, Anita will correct me, if I'm incorrect, Anita will correct me. We have had 3 financial recovery plans. And on the 3rd financial recovery plan, the first time that the council has worked hand in hand and been diligent with the audit. We have kept in contact through telephone, by email, and we came up with a financial plan that we thought was viable. We discussed, we put down all the things that was viable for us to make a change and go forward. And it was accepted by this commission and by the council in legislation to do that. First time we had a financial plan that we really thought that was successful. Then we turned around and was told that we could go forward with the borrowing. And no one expects unexpected circumstances to come into play, but you should. And it did. So that leaves us still where we had to do a certificate of resource. We did that. Everything that we were told to do, the council was able to comply. There was a lot of overspending, and I can't say it didn't happen. There was spending that shouldn't have taken place in the past. There was hiring that should not have taken place in the past. There has been neglectful equipment that should not have taken place. There have been purchases that should not have taken place, but it did. So I'm not saying that I don't recognize the things that were improbable that entered into the equation. But what I am saying right now is that for the first time, this council and council president has reached out to the mayor to join with him in a town hall meeting to explain to our residents what is happening and how we go forward. I know what we have now. We're fledgling, teetering on the edge and might fall off. And I appreciate the fact that we do have such people as Anita Tish and Ms. Smith. But it's not enough. It's not enough. This city is still here and should remain here and not merge with any other city when we can bring about a change within ourselves. So what I am saying to you is that we will come, we have been advised that we need another recovery plan. We will work another recovery plan. There are things out there that can happen that we can bring in more revenue. There is no registration of any is up. And my residents deserve more than what they're getting. And what I'm asking from you is to keep, working with us and helping us. And I know you can't tell us what to do, but you can show us a path to take in which to do it to get where we need to go. So, all I can say right now is that the city needs help. The city is, and as far as ATS and these cameras out here, I wouldn't have them back on a shoestring. And I don't always talk politically correct. And that's what I mean. We have 9 cameras out there. Only 3 brings in revenue. There are things that we need to do, and we know what we need to do. Our obligation is to pay the people that have serviced us. They need to get paid. And we have an idea where we can go and meet with them, but it's up to them whether they would reduce the cost or we could renegotiate some of the things that they are in. But like you said, time is of the essence. And that's where the council is willing to work with the mayor and the auditor and the court. I don't know what else we can do, but I do know that there has been quite an unnecessary spending that shouldn't have taken place. Thank you.
All I can do is to tell you that we will remain engaged. We will be here for you. You know, I'm going to speak a little out of turn here because I'm not elected to the legislature and I'm not the governor. But I am an observer of those processes down in Columbus, and I can tell you I don't see any new revenue coming out of Columbus in the way of like a restaurant. I think that would be very unlikely.
So all I'm saying is we're on our own and we have to get creative. And when the creativity runs out, then we'll do it next and we'll invest in the city.
I guess.
I can't speak for the mayor, because he's not here. But I can only speak for the council. And this council has worked very hard. And we're going to continue. But like I do, because I'm not only the council president, but I am the state subcommittee and I work with down in North Florida. So I do know what it is, and I have been told what it is. But like I said, this city's actually should have been, but would have, could have, should have, is the wrong time back term. Should have been more aggressive and more creative in things that we could have taken with. But it wasn't. And like I said, now time is of the essence and we must comply with the times and get a financial plan in place. That is viable. And I don't know how viable it's going to be, but we're going to work pretty hard to do that.
That's good news. And I'm not looking backward in the rearview mirror either. The dead past is just that. It's dead and we can't change it. So we can only look forward. But looking forward, I want to be very clear, there isn't time left to try to find a bunch of new solutions. So you're in the budget process now. The first 2 of those 4 options are tied up in the budget. If you have any ideas about revenue enhancement, do it now. If you had any opportunity to reduce expenditures, you should do it during that budget process because in 30 days, 40 days, when you finish that, whatever isn't covered at that point, you have to go to the next level and either look for reorganization of your financial obligations or look at merger because that will at that point be all that's left. If you want to avoid looking at either of those 2 solutions, you must do it in this budget, because time is of the essence.
Let me ask you another question. And this is Jeff's question, because, many people are asking, are we, here in the state of Ohio, have the process of bankruptcy, like, before?
Is Ohio, or is there a process for the city?
The reason I'm asking that is because there, doesn't seem to be a process, someone said it wasn't a process, in the state of Ohio, but there was in the state of Michigan that which allowed, Detroit to file bankruptcy.
Well, let me speak to that with a limited expertise. The area of the bankruptcy code that deals with municipalities is Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is not available unless the state provides a legal mechanism to access it. So Michigan obviously did have that trigger. Ohio has a statute to allow that. The one group of lawyers looks at that and says that that may only apply to municipalities that have bondholders. I personally disagree with that, and I think it would be a perverse reading of the law to say that, you know, well, you're not qualified, he's clear, because you don't have any bonds, but if you go out and borrow some bonds, then you can declare Chapter 9. That seems to me to be stupid. But anyway, the process, if it exists in Ohio, requires the Ohio Tax Commissioner to approve an application. However, before you can do that, under the bankruptcy code itself, and this is federal, so it's a national application, you have certain hoops that you have to jump through before you can even ask the judge to help you. And among those things is you have to have a meeting with all your creditors to try to work it out voluntarily first. So that was kind of the third option, to do that voluntarily. Whether you reorganize your debts with an agreement that's negotiated, or it happens under the force of law in court, the end result is the same. The idea would be everybody discounts the money that is owed and agrees to a lower cost basis going forward, so that you don't have this structural deficit. Now, all that, what does all that mean? I think that it means that it would be wise for the leadership of this city to convene a series of meetings with the creditors to try to develop that. If he succeeds, then he's done a good thing for the city. If he fails, he's at least met that prerequisite under the federal law. So that's a no-lose situation, it seems to me. Again, not my job to tell anyone what to do, but if you elect to go forward with that, that would be the next set of next steps.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the excellent explanation. I will do that, and it gives us food for thought, and it gives me food for thought to a discussion with the mayor.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Mr. Yost?
May I
need to be talking to them and let them know that we're not running and hiding from them. It's just a matter of, financial inadequacy, is the proper word. Um, and do what we can do. And I am not beyond looking at the process of bankruptcy and how it's done. Then, but that would maybe be a resort that we might can think of. But like I said before, and Mr. O'Neill has said, time is of the essence, and it seems like we have come close to the time limit. And I will be working closely as I can with my counselors and the administration to deal with it.
Any questions of Ms. Thomas?
Well, just in general question,
Okay.
Thomas, I think, but for all of us. Under the fiscal emergency statutes, budget would need to come before this commission or the financial supervisor if we are so authorized. What is our process and timing for that?
What we would normally do, I don't know if there's actual normal, it's a case-by-case situation. We don't actually have the legal right to approve a budget that is within the city's purview, but what we would be doing is looking at the budget in terms of, does it comply with the recovery plan that's in place? I, for one, do, and as a matter of fact, I did put it on our agenda to relook at a revision in that plan. I know that some of the revenues have not come in the way that were anticipated, and in this case, is to we put the cart before the horse. What I would really like to see, and there's really nothing that speaks entirely to it other than we review the budget. Now, as far as the plan is concerned, that at least on an annual basis, we would be looking for a revision. Now, what annual means, the anniversary date, whatever, I just think that at least once a year, if not more often. I think now is a prime time to ask the city to look at a revision in their recovery plan, particularly now since they're working on 2015 budget. And that will lay the basis and foundation for anything that occurs in the future. One of the things that I heard from Mr. Yost is that, and what I also heard from PFM, to be quite frank, and saw in their report, is the structural imbalance. Even with a note being floated, you're just forestalling the inevitable. If your revenues do not cover your expenditures, you are going to keep accruing past due payables. And once you do that note, that's it. You don't keep getting notes. So the opportunity is now to address that deficit. And again, Mr. Yost gave some options there, which is up to the city to do and to choose from.
If I could just
Sure.
clarify on a question, because you're correct, we don't have the power to approve the budget, that's the council. But the way the statute reads is prior to the approval by the council, the budget shall be submitted to this commission for our determination, our review and determination if it is in compliance with the plan. And just knowing that
So from a timing viewpoint, I would see us as getting both of those deliverables prior to the end of March when the permanent budget is due. And from the viewpoint of actual legally, I don't think that then gives the city the 120 days that would be in statute.
So you want to plan and have a budget in 30 days? Is that what you're saying?
Not within 30 days. I would be looking, I, and correct me if I'm wrong or you feel otherwise, but the city definitely has to have a spending budget in place. And it's not at all unusual for any local government to pass temporaries until they've got a better feel for revenues. You know, maybe they're waiting for reevaluation information from whatever it would be, I don't know, the fiscal office, to be able to base their revenues correctly. So I would be okay with council and the auditor's office continuing to work as they have on the 2015 budget, knowing that it would be temporary and subject to change, and may not for the permanent budget that needs to be submitted. And while that's going on, working towards a plan.
What would be the next appropriation for that time, which you gave me some form? What would be the next, how would you set that?
I've seen people do all sorts of different things. Depends on the size of the government. Sometimes it's more than that in certain line items because of encumbrances they have. Right.
I would suggest, to the best of our ability, do what the